bring Charlie with you.
It looks like we're now live, so go ahead, take two for Senator Libby.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to the Committee on Taxation. I'm Nate Libby, and I proudly serve all the people of Lewiston in the Maine Senate.
Excellent. Senator Pouliot.
Hey, good morning. State Senator Matt Pouliot. I represent Senate District 15, which are the towns of Augusta, China, Oakland, Sydney, and Bassboro.
Excellent. Looks like Representative Bickford is not with us. Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Representative Mickey Carmichael. I represent House District 137, which is parts of Penobscot, Hancock, and Washington counties, including my hometown in Greenbush.
Excellent. And Representative Collins, I think, will be with us soon. Representative Gramlich.
Thank you, Senator Chipman. My name is Lori Gramlich, and I represent the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach. And I need to pop off to go to another committee, but I will be back.
All right. And Representative Hanley and Krajicek are not with us yet, so we will now hear from Representative Matlack.
Good morning. I'm Ann Matlack. I represent House District 92, which includes the communities of Cushing, Thomaston, South Thomaston, St. George, Matinicus, Cree Haven, and the Muscle Ridge Islands.
All right. And Representative Perry.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Joe Perry. I represent part of Bangor and part of Orono in the Maine House.
Excellent. And Representative Sachs.
Good morning. My name is Melanie Sachs, and I'm honored to represent House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell.
And Representative Terry.
Good morning. Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west part of Gorham, and I serve as House Chair.
And I'm Senator Ben Chipman. I represent Senate District 27, which is most of the city of Portland. I also serve as Senate Chair of the Taxation Committee, and also want to introduce to everyone Avery Page, who's our committee clerk, and also with us is Julie Jones, our committee analyst. So we're going to have work sessions on 4 bills today. We will begin with LD 94. This is an act to allow municipalities to exempt volunteer firefighters from paying excise tax on their vehicles used to respond to fire calls. Julie has a chart. Maybe we could bring that up on the screen for everybody. I think you're muted, Julie.
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you now.
I think I'm unmuted now. Yes, LD 94 is Representative Dudera's bill, as you described. This bill authorizes municipalities to adopt an ordinance which would extend a motor vehicle excise tax exemption to volunteer firefighters for the vehicle that they use to respond to fire calls in the municipality. The idea of a municipal option motor vehicle excise tax is somewhat new. There is only one municipal option exemption currently on the law, which relates to military service members who are stationed outside of the state of Maine. They can continue to have a vehicle in Maine without having to pay a motor vehicle excise tax on it if they demonstrate that they're serving outside of the state of Maine for at least 180 days during the year.
All right. Committee discussion on this bill.
I have something.
Go ahead, Representative Terry.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We got a written testimony from MRS saying that there was constitutionality issues, that we are unable to tax anybody else differently. I'd be worried if we were to do this. That would be one issue, that there could be litigation, and B, most of my friends from where I grew up are volunteer firefighters, and I think it's an incredibly admirable thing that they do. But I also don't think that they would consider not paying excise tax on their vehicles. Just don't know that it would be something that they would be interested in doing. So I just wanted to throw that out there. My main concern though is the constitutionality part of it though.
Yeah, and I grew up in a family of volunteer firefighters, so those of you who didn't know that. So I anything we can do to support volunteer firefighters. I mean, there's a big shortage of volunteer firefighters now around the state, but I'm not sure this would attract more people into it or not. I mean, it's more of a way to kind of provide some benefit for those that are doing it, I guess. But many towns do pay stipends or of some sort to volunteer firefighters to help cover some of their costs. Or some towns do, I should say, not most, but some I know do that. And they could do that now. They could increase the stipend if they're currently paying one, or start paying a stipend separate from excise tax, just paying them a stipend. But any other committee discussion? Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could echo everybody else's feelings on this. I was a volunteer fire department fire member in my hometown for 17 years when I was a little younger. And while I support them 100%, I would love to find ways to financially support them better. But I just got real questions with this approach. I'm not real comfortable with, this shifts a little bit of the tax from, this tax still has to be paid by someone. So it will just go to property tax, most likely. And, it doesn't change the town's financial obligations at all. So I don't know. I guess I would have to look for a different way to support our firefighters. Thank you.
Any additional committee discussion on LD 94? I'd like to make a motion on the bill.
Representative Matlack raised her hand.
Go ahead, Representative. I can't see everybody because we got the chart up.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I have heard from local municipalities about this one. I think there is a concern about shifting the excise tax, which is a revenue stream for local municipalities, and the concern that where that might lead. And also it based on an excise tax, it would be the vehicle that the individual has. So it would be a different rate for different people. So if you're trying to reward people for their participation in the volunteer fire department, maybe there should be a direct specific benefit as opposed to whatever vehicle that you happen to have right now, dictating what the specific benefit would be to you. So I think a more direct benefit from a municipality as opposed to this indirect benefit that benefits people unequally, my opinion.
Representative Matlack, so if they have a really nice vehicle, they'd get a bigger benefit. And if they don't have a really nice vehicle, they would get a smaller benefit, but they're still arguably providing the same service to the town by volunteering, right? So
right.
That service will still have the same value, but the value of the excise tax under this bill would be greatly different depending on the vehicle. Representative Sachs, go ahead.
I just wanted to echo the constitutionality issue really spoke to me in that memo, and Representative Carmichael's comments and Matlack's as well. So with that, I'd like to offer a motion of ought not to pass, regretfully.
Second.
The motion of ought not to pass made by Representative Sachs and seconded by Representative Terry. So go ahead, Representative Terry, did you have something?
I was just going to make the motion or second it if necessary, but already done.
Okay. Any further committee discussion on this bill? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion that's ought not to pass?
Okay, it looks like we have a unanimous vote for that motion.
Apologize, I just got word that Representative Dudera was here and wanted to speak with us or answer questions, but we've already voted on the bill. I don't know if that's relevant now. Representative Terry, should we still hear from her, or do you think we're all set?
I think we're okay.
Apologies to Representative Dudera. I can't see who's in the waiting room. I didn't realize I just got a text from our clerk that she was here, but
she was just here to answer questions if we had any. I don't think we have any questions.
Okay, great. Excellent. So that is unanimous. Go ahead, Representative Terry.
I was just going to ask Senator Pouliot if he's got a question or if his hand's still raised up. Mine was too. Don't feel bad.
So we'll now close the work session on LD 94, and we'll go right into work session on LD 724. This is a bill sponsored by Representative Ordway, an act to base the vehicle and mobile home excise tax on actual value.
Yes, I'm unmuted. LD 724 and LD 950 are both addressing the issue of the base on which the motor vehicle excise tax is imposed. Currently, under current law, first of all, the purpose of the motor vehicle excise tax is that it replaces the property tax on motor vehicles, which would be considered personal property, and in the absence of the excise tax, would be subject to the property tax. It was enacted many decades ago now to address the issue of the equality of taxation of motor vehicles throughout the state. And the current basis for the calculation of the tax is something called the maker's list price, was essentially the manufacturer's suggested retail price. The idea being that that the motor vehicle would be taxed the same whether it was located in Portland or Presque Isle or Calais or Dover Foxcroft. And right now that maker's list price applies to all motor vehicles except for certain commercial motor vehicles, trucks and buses, and certain special mobile equipment, which is usually sort of, I think of it anyway, as construction related types of motor vehicles, which are those vehicles are assessed at purchase price. I was not staffing the committee when that happened, so I can't really tell you the history behind that particular change, but it was made a while back now. It has not always been that way. This bill would change the base to the purchase price of the motor vehicle. And no, that's not right. It would change it to the actual value of the motor vehicle. The actual value is not defined in the bill. What the bill provides is that actual value would have to be determined based upon sources provided by Maine Revenue Services. So it kind of places the burden on Maine Revenue Services to identify what constitutes actual value of the vehicle. The bill would provide that it had to be the actual value at the time of delivery to the owner, which raises some confusion as with regard to things like used vehicles, whether they would be based upon a used value or there would have to be perhaps a Blue Book value or whatever Maine Revenue Services comes up with to use. Although I think Blue Book values also give values for used cars, not just new ones. The bill would require reimbursement to municipalities for the difference between the maker's list price excise tax calculation and the amount that the municipality would raise under the new calculation in the bill. Both the Bureau of Motor Vehicles and Maine Revenue Services had some drafting and technical concerns with the bill. LD, did I say 970 is the one that would provide a different base. It is the one that would use purchase, excuse me, it's the allergies again, the purchase price rather than the maker's list price. This LD 970 provides a definition of purchase price to mean the amount paid or financed after trade-in rebates, discounts, and paybacks. In this case, for instance, you might have a situation where if I'm purchasing a new Subaru Crosstrek, which happens to be what I have, although it's not new, I might be trading in a vehicle that's 10 years old and getting very little trade-in on it, but that would be subtracted from the base for calculation of the tax. Someone else in the next municipality over might be trading in a fairly new car and be receiving a big reduction from the list price or the market price. And so their tax would be based upon a much lower value, even though they were purchasing the same car as I was. LD 970 does not provide for reimbursement to municipalities for the difference in the excise tax. And both the Bureau of Motor Vehicles and Maine Revenue Services, again, have drafting and technical concerns with regard to how the new system would work. Also, 970 would only apply to new vehicles, or only applied if the car was purchased from a new vehicle dealer or a used car dealer. It would not apply to personal sales or family transactions where a vehicle may have been transferred from one member of a family to another member of the family, perhaps without money being exchanged at all. Those vehicles would continue to be assessed based upon the maker's list price. So it would only be if the vehicle was purchased from a dealer, whether the vehicle was new or used, that the purchase price would be used under this bill.
Okay.
I think I said everything I need. The other thing I wanted to mention back at the beginning was the idea of a setting maker's list price, and that gets used throughout the years so that the vehicle pays an excise tax. But the idea of depreciation of the value of the property is worked in through the mill rate of the excise tax decreasing over 6 years. On the first year of a vehicle when it's new, the tax is 24 mills. Over 6 years, it decreases gradually so that in the 6th year and subsequent years, the mill rate is 4 mills. So you can see it's gone down quite dramatically from 24 mills to 4 mills over those 6 years. It's still based upon the maker's list price, the original maker's list price, but the rate goes down. So by the 6th and subsequent years, the rate is much lower.
So before we get into discussion, I should also open up the work session on LD 970. So we can talk about these together since they're very similar bills on the same topic. And with that, I also want to ask sponsors, Representative Ordway or Representative Connor are with us. I can't see the waiting room, but if they are, I want to see if they had anything they wanted to add. Avery, can you tell us if either of them are here with us?
I don't see them. And if you click participants at the bottom of your screen, you can see all the attendees.
Okay. So if neither of them are with us, just wanted to afford that courtesy to offer additional information. That doesn't seem like they are. So committee discussion, Representative Perry, you had your hand up.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you just call on me?
Yeah, you had your hand up for a while, but I don't know if you still wanted to speak or not.
Yeah. Well, if the public hearing, if the work session is open on both bills, I would say this is a tax no one likes. Every year there are very complicated, cumbersome, expensive fixes that don't really fix anything, in my opinion. So I don't want to say on both bills.
We lost you there, Representative Perry. Were you making a motion? Yeah, we can't hear you or anything, Representative Perry. Go ahead.
I didn't come through. You couldn't hear me?
It sounded like you were making a motion or something. I don't know. Did you make a motion?
Okay.
We'll come back for the committee discussion from members of the committee. Go ahead, Senator Libby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what Representative Perry was trying to say is that every year there's a pretty complex proposal to try to lessen the vehicle excise tax for individuals who are purchasing new vehicles in excess of $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year. Nobody really likes this particular tax. However, it's a pretty essential part of funding our road infrastructure. My personal feeling is if folks are able to spend $80,000 on a pickup truck, they are able to afford the excise tax and the sales tax, even though it's a large number. If anything, I'd be more interested in entertaining a conversation around extending out depreciation to help lower the burden for folks who are operating vehicles that are 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and doing it in a revenue neutral way to create some fairness for lower income working class folks and seniors. But in lieu of that, I don't know that the either proposal before us is workable. So I think we're taking up Representative Wardway's bill first. Is that correct, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, so we'd have we'd have a motion on each bill separately, so we're in work session on both bills, but and we can talk about them together, but we'd have a separate motion for each one, just procedurally.
I was going to make a motion if you need one.
Oh, yeah, sure, if you want, that'd be fine.
Ought not to pass on Representative Wardway's bill.
You make a motion about not to pass on LD 724?
Correct.
Okay, and do we have a second for that? Seconded by Representative Terry. So we have a motion from Senator Libby, seconded by Representative Terry about not to pass on LD 724. Is there any committee discussion? We can continue to discuss the bill if you want. Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I looked these both over, and I can't see that either one of them is more fair than what we have in place now. And that's the part that I was struggling with, was how these bills would make it more fair for everybody. And I think that, like Senator Libby said, I think the process of maybe depreciating it over a longer period of time, or, so that the people, when they have an older vehicle, maybe they're paying a little less for the excise tax, because usually then people are, running older vehicles for a reason. So, I think the system we have in place now is more fair than what I could get from these two.
Yeah, so Representative Carmichael, this issue comes up every year, and I think with LD 970, the issue is, what you pay for it would be the tax would be based on that versus what MSRP says the car is worth. So maybe it's a vehicle that has, a lot of rust on it or needs a bunch of work or something like that. So you get a better price on it, but you pay a tax based on this sort of number that MSRP says it's worth versus what you paid. So that sort of, the fairness is like, it's one of the only things that you buy and pay a tax on that's not based on what you paid for it, but we also heard testimony that it's more like a property tax than a sales tax, and so I think to Senator Libby's point, it is an essential part of funding for cities and towns. So with that, is there any further committee discussion on this bill? We have a motion on the table, ought not to pass. Go ahead and vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify.
Are we going to wait on Rep Collings?
Well, he's sort of with us, but he's sort of not. So I don't know.
He said he was going to be going back and forth between meetings on different devices. So maybe if he hears us.
Okay. All right. I'll try and buy some time here. So far, I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby. Do I have Senator? Yep. Senator Pouliot, Representative Terry, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, Representative Sachs, Representative Kryzak, and Representative Carmichael.
Okay, so that appears to be unanimous. We're not sure about Representative Collings, but I guess we can get his vote afterwards. He's not on the screen here, so. So that concludes the work session on LD 724. We're still in work session on LD 970. So this is the bill that's slightly different. It's basing excise tax on actual sale price as opposed to actual value as proposed in the previous bill, but Julie's kind of already gone through the analysis on this. Is there committee discussion on LD 970? Senator Pouliot?
Make a motion on not to pass.
Second.
We have a motion by Senator Pouliot about not to pass,
Second.
by Representative Terry. Committee discussion on this bill? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify. You have everybody here?
I have Senator Chipman, Senator Libby, Senator Pouliot, Representative Terry, Representative Matlack, Representative Perry, Representative Sachs, Representative Kryzak, and Representative Carmichael.
So that is unanimous of everybody who voted. So we'll close the work session on LD 970. And we'll now go into work session on LD 1062. This is an act to phase out the insurance premium tax on annuities.
Sharing screen. LD 962 is Senator Cloutier's bill to phase out the insurance premium tax on annuities. It would do this over 10 years, beginning in 2022. And it provides that during the phase out company, the retaliatory tax on non-main insurance companies does not apply. And there was, I'm not sure how many people have confronted the retaliatory tax on insurance companies in the past. It's somewhat of an unusual thing that most states provide that if, for instance, we'll just say if, I don't even know if New York has one, but I imagine they do. If New York has a retaliatory tax, then and a New York insurance company sells a policy in Maine, that New York company is going to pay the New York tax. They're not going to pay the Maine tax, and vice versa. When a Maine company sells a policy to a customer in New York, they're going to pay what the Maine tax is. They're not going to pay what the New York tax is. So it places Maine companies potentially at a disadvantage if they're selling policies in a state that has a lower tax rate than Maine's tax rate, which is currently 2% of gross premiums on insurance policies. Annuities were added to the insurance premium tax a few years back now, maybe 10, I'm not sure exactly when, but about that time period, where annuities are somewhat in the nature of insurance policies, and they're frequently sold by insurance companies. So they were added into the insurance premium tax. And there were concerns raised at the public hearing about the impact that that would have on Maine companies being able to sell outside the state of Maine, in addition to inside the state of Maine, I guess. But there was a similar bill last year, LD 625, which died at the end of the 129th on the appropriations table. It received a positive report out of the taxation committee. Maine Revenue Services indicates an administrative cost of $33,000 and a revenue impact they say is not available, but the fiscal note on last year's bill is given for the first 4 years of the phase out at least. So you can see the amount, about 300,000 in the first year, 800,000 in the second year, 1.4 in the third year, and about 2 million in the fourth year, because the amount of it's phased out. So the tax would go down gradually, a little bit in the first year, a little bit more the second year, a little bit more in the third year, until in the 10th year, it would go away entirely. That's all I got.
Okay. Committee discussion on LD 1062.
Senator Chipman?
Yes, go ahead, Senator Libby.
Thank you. Clarifying question for Julie. Was the bill that made it to the appropriations table last year on the same phase out schedule as the bill before us? I thought I heard you say it was a 4-year phase out last year.
The fiscal note was for 4 years. I believe the phase out was for 10. I'll check real quickly now. I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% positive, but I can check quickly here.
Representative Terry's nodding her head.
Yeah, I think we did. I think Senator Pouliot can probably echo that too. I think we changed it to 10 years. Do you remember the same thing, Senator Pouliot?
Yes.
So given that, Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion about to pass as amended by the fiscal note.
Second.
By Senator Libby of ought to pass as amended with the fiscal note, seconded by Senator Pouliot. Committee discussion. I guess I'd just say that I'm not going to be voting for this bill. And it's really more of just a philosophical place of where I am right now. Yes, we're getting a lot of free money from the federal government, but that's going to be gone in a year or two. And then we're going to be left with having to fund state government. And I feel like there's a lot of things that are not being funded properly in the state now, and in the future will not be funded properly unless we generate new sources and keep the current sources that we have of regular sustainable funding. And this is part of that. So I can't support this bill at this time. I know there's a few other states that have this. I don't think that we're losing any purchasing of annuities, because we heard in the testimony that if someone buys an annuity in New Hampshire or some other state and they know the person lives in Maine, they still charge the tax. So we're not losing purchasing of annuities. And quite frankly, I feel like regardless of what income level people are at, if people can afford to go out and buy these annuities and make investments, they can afford to pay this 2% tax. In most cases, they probably don't even know there's a tax on it. They probably don't even, it's not even a factor when they consider purchasing an annuity. So I'll be voting no for those reasons. Go ahead. We have 3 folks that would like to speak. Senator Pouliot.
Yeah, I'd be supporting the motion just because there's obviously broad support both from the administration and also a number of organizations that came and testified in favor of this. But frankly, I just think we need to continue to work on making Maine more in line with the rest of the country instead of an outlier as it relates to taxes. People on this group may not make an analysis decision about, where to go on taxes, but there are people that do, and I just think that, Maine, obviously look at the list, pretty short list of states that have this tax. Seems to make sense to me to streamline and get more on an equal playing field with the rest of the country.
Representative Matlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be supporting this bill also. I think that the demographic of the people who purchase these annuities does not skew towards the upper reaches of income levels. It's more modest than that. And I believe that we are an outlier in taxing these modest annuities that people scrape together in the hopes of having money in their retirement. And they probably, you're right, they probably don't realize that they're being taxed on these annuities, but I think that's too bad. That they probably are not the more astute investors, and they think that the tax is just part of the annuity. And I would prefer that they not have to pay that additional burden when they're trying to just save for their retirement. Thank you.
And we have Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a question about the fiscal note that was applied to the bill. The Maine Revenue Service said 5.6 million. And a testimony from Mr. Bernier, they thought that was rather high, and they thought maybe that part of the reason might have been there was including premium tax from other products like life insurance. So I was wondering if we could get a clearer idea of what the fiscal note actually is, or if there is some I support the bill. I just would like to know more definitely what the fiscal note would be. And I think it would be, you know, the appropriations is going to need it too, but
So you'd like to
I
hear
don't
from
know if that's something that Dr. Allen can give us, or if,
Dr. Allen's with us, we could certainly ask him for more clarification on the fiscal note. I mean, we have a fiscal note that they put together. So you're questioning whether that's accurate and want some clarification, or?
yeah, if it's possible that maybe some of, you know, like life insurance premium tax might have been included in that somehow, or
Maybe you
just
could,
where the Mr. Bernie brought it up. I just thought it would be useful to know.
maybe Dr. Allen, if you could chime in and provide some additional information about the fiscal note.
Certainly. So there are two specific lines on the insurance premiums tax that are specific to annuity considerations. And we have fairly good information on those two lines. The area that we have okay data on is the deductions. So when premiums are paid out, annuities are paid out that offset the premiums being paid. That's a little trickier, but we think we've got a pretty good handle on that. So it's a long way maybe of saying that we're fairly confident in that $5.5 to $6 million annual revenue from the 2% tax on annuities. It's remarkably stable. We've gone back to 2010 or so, maybe even a little bit before that, and we just got data this morning through 2019. It's always in that 5.5 to 6 million range. It doesn't vary much year to year.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Allen. We have questions from Representative Sachs, followed by Senator Libby.
Actually, my comments really reflected Representative Matlack's, although I'd be supporting the bill as well, based on the testimony that this is often a retirement vehicle that's accessible for those who are lower and moderate income. And so taxing those benefits as well as taxing their profits, as well as taxing gain, just doesn't seem to me to be smart policy per se. So thank you, Representative Matlack, for eloquently detailing that before I got there. Thank you.
And Senator Libby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Pouliot and I are on the same page on the policy here, and I think it's perhaps for different reasons. I agree that we are an outlier on this gross revenue tax that's incurred, and there are some complications when we're dealing with businesses and buyers in different states. However, I don't know that a single person is moving out of Maine because of this 2% annuity tax. The report from Dr. Allen just now that this revenue line is remarkably stable, I think is one piece of evidence to suggest that's not the case. I'd say the other, on the tax flight myth generally, is that the census data does not support that. So while there may be strong anecdotal evidence of folks moving to Florida who have the means to escape income tax, I think on the whole, most reasonable people are not making decisions on what their home state is based on the state's tax policy. So I just wanted to clarify that, make sure there was no confusion there.
Great. Thank you for that clarification, Senator Libby. Additional committee discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion on the table of ought to pass as amended, I believe. Go ahead, Representative Kryzak.
Nope, sorry, I was voting yes.
Oh, okay. So everybody ready to vote? All those in favor, please signify.
Okay, I have Senator Libby, Senator Pouliot, Representative Terry, Representative Matlack, Representative Sachs, Representative Kryzak. Looks like Representative Collins isn't with us anymore.
All right. All those opposed?
And Senator Chipman for opposed.
So that will close the work session on LD 10.
And was the opposition, Senator Chipman, was that ought not to pass?
Ought not to pass, yes.
Thank you.
Great, so we've closed the work session LD 1062, and we don't have any other bills for work session today. Is there any announcements from either Julie or Dr. Terry, if you have anything?
We were going to maybe have a little bit of overview of tax expenditure review process this morning. Do you still want to do that, or?
Yeah, let's do that when we have plenty of time. So let's go ahead and do that if there's no objection from anybody.
Okay. I'm going to try to be, this is going to be really an overview. It's going to be quite brief. I don't think it'll probably take more than about 10 or 15 minutes, but I'm going to do a little bit of sharing here. I have sort of a faux PowerPoint presentation since I haven't done PowerPoint for a while and I couldn't quite figure out in the time available to me how to make it work. I mean, I know I could have done it, but it would have taken too much time. So it's a Word document, but the area of tax expenditure review is kind of a complicated area and has a complicated history, as you'll see just from what I'll talk about this morning. Beginning in 1977, 1978, a procedure was enacted which required the Taxation Committee to review all tax expenditures, including both income tax, sales tax, and property tax, on a 4-year rotating schedule. And during the interim between first and regular sessions, or second and first, either way, the Taxation Committee would meet during the interim and review all income tax credits and deductions and all sales tax exemptions and also property tax exemptions, although review of property tax exemptions is no longer part of the tax expenditure review policy. Beginning in the 1990s, or maybe even the 1980s, the Taxation Committee felt that its review policy was not resulting in the kind of information that they wanted it to produce. And this was the first recognition, really, of what is going to be an ongoing theme throughout, even up to the current process for tax expenditure review. It's very difficult. The legislature is generally in the position of wanting to know whether the particular tax expenditure is effective, whether it's accomplishing its legislative purpose. There are two problems with that, with meeting that need. One is that the legislature, at least in those days, rarely enacted as part of the statute what its goal was, what its purpose was, how the tax expenditure should be evaluated. So when in the 70s and 80s, it was the tax committee that was looking at the expenditure, it wasn't clear what the legislature was trying to accomplish with that other than to exempt something from taxation. So a revision was accomplished in the 90s, which instead required Maine Revenue Services to put together every 2 years a report which would provide information to the legislature about tax expenditures. Property tax was not included at that point. It was sales and income tax and a few other miscellaneous tax items as well. The result of that was the Red Book, which you've heard frequent reference to, and hopefully you received in the mail, the most recent one in the last couple of weeks. So you've seen what that looks like in terms of you getting from, as part of that process, a brief summary of the tax expenditure. Its fiscal impact is definitely provided to you. Whether it's effective at accomplishing its goals is not something that Maine Revenue Services has been asked to provide to you. However, the statute does provide, and the Taxation Committee has kind of honored this process by being busy, I guess, or by doing it in a non-complicated way. The Taxation Committee is required to review the Red Book in odd-numbered years and decide as a result of that whether you want to make any changes to the tax expenditure laws. And you have statutory authority to report out legislation if you do want to. During even-numbered years, the committee is authorized to look at any tax expenditure policy that it wants to, and to report out legislation if it considers it necessary. Those of you who have been on the committee for a while have sort of recognized that you received the Red Book. You may or may not remember that you've been told, because I generally tell you when you receive it that you are, the statute does require you to look at it. You don't have to submit a report, but if you want to, you can. So there has been little in the way of legislation resulting from that process, if anything. In the mid 2000s, the first decade of the 21st century, back in 2013, there was actually legislation that came out of the Appropriations Committee, interestingly enough, although you'll see why shortly, which established something called the Tax Expenditure Review Task Force, which was composed of 4 legislators and 8 members of the public appointed by the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the usual kind of task force appointment procedure. They were directed to look at tax expenditures, to recommend a policy for review of tax expenditures, and to identify $40 million that could be gained from making changes or repeal of tax expenditures. The Appropriations Committee needed money in the mid part of that decade. Well, not in the mid part of that, in 2013. The task force did meet. It spoke with OPEGA a lot about the possibility of coming up with a tax expenditure review process to be part of the OPEGA function, which had previously been related solely to reviewing programs and whether they were being effective. The Pew Trust entity, a nonprofit nationwide, who had adopted the policy of tax expenditure review as something they wanted to advocate for in the States. So they were actually quite involved in coming up with a process, which was primarily, the process of coming up with a process was primarily given to OPEGA to recommend a policy. So the report of that task force did not include the policy, but it included the direction to the legislature, the future legislature, to come up with a process. OPEGA and the Taxation Committee worked on a process which resulted in 2015 with the enactment of the current process involving OPEGA, the Government Oversight Committee, and the Taxation Committee. The current process, review process, is overseen by the Government Oversight Committee and the Taxation Committee. The initial evaluation work is done essentially by OPEGA. The review process is that the Government Oversight Committee, always in consultation with the Taxation Committee, assigns each tax expenditure to a category. Originally, these categories were created in 2015, and they're required to review it every year and to make adjustments if they think they're necessary, and to establish a schedule for review. At that point, a schedule was established for 6-year reviews, and there were 3 categories of reviews established. The first one, the most extensive review, is called full evaluation. It is for, and the statutes provide a definition of what each of these categories is. I've made it briefer here. It's a little more complicated, but essentially full evaluation for incentives for taxpayer behavior, something to provide a benefit to a specific group, or that has measurable goals. These are the kind of heavy duty evaluations for things you've spoken about this year, for instance, the research expense credit, the seed capital credit, things like Better and Betty, the ETIF program. These types of things are all examples of full evaluation. When we get to the end in a few minutes, you'll see a list. Expedited review, which is much less extensive. It's review of basically broad tax policies. The most easy to understand one is tax expenditures for that exempt taxation of necessities. For instance, grocery sales tax exemption for grocery staples or prescription drugs or heating fuel. In those instances, well, no, I'm getting ahead of myself. The third category is no review. These are tax expenditures, should be say impact, not impact, with an impact of less than $50,000 a year, or that otherwise do not warrant full evaluation or expedited review. The full evaluation process, OPEGA recommends and the Government Oversight Committee approves, again, always consulting with tax, evaluation parameters for each full review tax procedure. For instance, right now, OPEGA is in the process of recommending to the Government Oversight Committee evaluation parameters for 3 full review tax expenditures, the next 3 that are on their list. They have a list that it establishes an order of review. The next 3 on the list are the seed capital credit, the research expense credit, and the historic rehabilitation credit. It's my understanding that they're going to be, that the Government Oversight Committee will be discussing the reviews for the seed capital credit and the research credit at their meeting tomorrow morning. Again, a reminder that they are going to discuss, that the Government Oversight Committee will be discussing tax expenditures. If you have the opportunity to listen in, I recommend it. The statutes provide that the OPEGA analysis should identify the purposes, intent, and goals of the tax expenditure, the intended beneficiaries of the tax expenditure, and evaluation of the objectives, both in terms of fiscal impact, effectiveness, extent of meeting the goals, extent of benefit to beneficiaries, whether the behavior would occur without the tax expenditure, the effectiveness and efficiency of administration of the expenditure, the cost effectiveness compared to possible alternatives, and opportunities, and to identify opportunities to improve the effectiveness. The OPEGA reports address those factors that are required in statute. OPEGA performs the analysis once the parameters have been established, issues a report to the Government Oversight Committee and to the Taxation Committee. Stakeholder input is sought. The Government Oversight Committee holds a public comment period once the report, the draft report is, well, I guess it's a report at that point, is available. The OPEGA report is reviewed by the Government Oversight Committee for objectivity and credibility, and they vote on whether to endorse the report. The Taxation Committee has the responsibility for reviewing the results of the evaluation, to report the committee's activities to the legislature, and including any recommendations, and the Tax Committee is authorized to submit legislation. Those are the ones that, reports that you have received earlier in the session relating to the Better and Betty program and the capital investment program are reports that have reached this 5th stage and have been reported to taxation. There are statutory deadlines for the Taxation Committee to report out its recommendations to the legislature. Those have passed, but you still have the opportunity to review them. And of course, the legislature still has the ability to accept your report when you do it. Scheduling difficulties are part of the process issues that present themselves with regard to tax expenditure review. When you receive a report depends greatly upon your ability to spend a lot of time on it. The expedited review process, the less sophisticated analysis. Under this policy, OPEGA does not analyze the provisions. They provide information to the taxation committee. The information that they provide includes a review of whether there's a need for adjustments. Well, okay, first of all, it's established on policies. For instance, the policy of necessities of life. So the tax expenditures back at the beginning in 2015 were categorized as to whether they fit into, for instance, the category of necessities of life. So OPEGA looks at whether there's a continued need for the policy or whether there needs to be adjustments to the policy. They looked at reasons why the tax policy was adopted, the extent to which reasons still remain, and they identify the fiscal impact, which is essentially the fiscal impact identified by the Red Book. They provide that information, essentially a format, to the taxation committee for the review of the expedited review process. They provide a description of the policy, a description of each tax expenditure under the policy, the intended beneficiaries, and the legislative history of the provision. They provide that to the taxation committee. Tax then reviews and submits the results of its review to the legislature, again with authority to submit legislation. The third category, there is no review, so there's no process. That's my spreadsheet. So I'm going to stop sharing this one and I'm going to share a different one with you.
Julie, can I ask a quick question while you're pulling up your stuff?
Yes, you can.
So we got in the mail these guys.
Yes.
3 expenditure reviews. I just want to confirm that those were sent to this whole committee, or were these sent to the, okay, I wasn't sure if they were sent to this committee or to the 129th committee, or maybe both. Could have been both.
Yeah, they were sent to both. They were sent to the 129th when they were received last year, although I think ETIF goes back even further than 2019.
I think so.
2020.
Yeah.
But the main capital investment credit and the Better Betty were sent to the members of the 129th last fall, and 2 members of this committee should have received in the mail in a packet maybe a month ago now those reports. If to the extent that taxation committee is going to be reviewing those this year, you want to pull those out and get a really good idea of what they look like. The expedited one report was also in those materials. They are available online, both at the Government Oversight Committee website and at the Taxation Committee website. So online versions are available. I don't know if we in my office no longer have any extra paper copies to send to people. OPEGA may have, I don't know the answer to that question, but they are all available online in a variety of locations. Okay, screen sharing. Okay, this is, I know a member had an issue about reviewing things early, about rotating things earlier. In this instant, generally, if you, there's a menu up at the top. I don't know if you can see the menu on your screen now, but under view, that's usually I rotate the view. So if I rotate, oops, I rotated the wrong way.
A couple times.
Rotate view. Counterclockwise, counterclockwise. Can only do it once. Rotate. I'm trying to do it too quickly. That's why I'm getting. Okay, So this is the memo sent to you, but I don't know why it's blue, because what was sent to us was not blue, and I have no idea why it's showing. Is it blue on your screen? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I tried to make it white earlier this morning, wasn't able to. I'll also apologize for these materials. The originals, which are also posted online on the Taxation Committee website under the category of tax expenditure review. I printed out the materials that were sent to us and made a PDF of them in order to make this screen sharing. And for some reason, in making the PDF, the quality of the print of the text is not very good. And I apologize for that, but again, I couldn't figure out how to make that better right now either. So the memo from Lucia Nixon, Director of OPEGA, to me for the Taxation Committee identifies that the Government Oversight has conducted its annual review of category assignments and schedule, and they're submitting this information to you. So they are submitting a request for, not a request, but an indication, a recommendation for some adjustments to the category assignments, the category A, B, and C assignments, and some categorization of some new statutes, new tax expenditures that were enacted in the last session to put them into one of the three categories of full evaluation, expedited review, and no review, referred to as A, B, and C subsequently. They also have provided, well, I think I said that already. Okay, so now I'm gonna have to rotate again because we're getting over to the charts. Okay. First chart are proposals for allocation of new tax expenditures to the categories. The first one on the list is the credit enacted last year for affordable housing projects. This is a credit to developers of affordable housing projects. This has been, over in the far right-hand column, proposed to be assigned to category A for full evaluation. New tax expenditures recommended for being assigned to category B are is a sales tax exemption. This is actually not a new one, but sales tax exemption. Actually, I should look at my notes before I start to speak. This one, the first one under category B, is one actually that was repealed last year. So it's a sales tax.
Point of order, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, Julie, your chart isn't up on my screen. I don't know if it is for everybody else.
Can other people see the chart?
I just see the blue one still.
It's sideways.
Yeah, it's sideways, Julie. It's just like a letter. It looks like the cover letter.
It was the document that you just had up around Lucia Nixon's memo, but now I think you're describing a chart we can't see.
Well, I'm scrolling down to the next page in this document, which is a chart, and I'm not sure why you're not seeing it.
So
I apologize, but I'm not.
So if you can stop sharing your screen for just a sec, Julie.
Yep, I can go into it from the web page, I think.
I think you can go back to your chart, but just now start it instead of jumping right to it. I think you have to stop sharing in order to share something new.
But it was the same document.
Oh, weird. Maybe try it again, see what happens.
Okay.
Was that what everybody else was seeing? I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay. I was looking for the column on the right-hand side and just was.
There you go.
Thank you so much, Julie. That's
now?
wonderful. Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know why that didn't. I don't know why that didn't work. It might have had something to do with my rotate. I have no idea.
I'm glad you caught that, Melanie.
Yes, me too. Anyway, I mentioned the new credit for affordable housing, income tax credit for affordable housing, which is proposed to be assigned to category A for full evaluation. Recommendations with regard to category A. The first is with regard to a sales tax exemption for electricity used or fuel used in heating a greenhouse. This was actually, it was repealed in 2019. But, and the recommendation under this is just to remove it from category B since it no longer exists. Makes sense. The subsequent ones are a sales tax exemption enacted last year for nonprofit youth camps licensed by Department of Health and Human Services. This is proposed to be added to the category B expenditure for review. Also, the sales tax exemption, which enacted last year for nonprofit, community-based, worldwide charitable organizations that provide assistance with regard to food banks, homeless and domestic violence shelters, and to improve health, education, and strengthen financial stability. This is also proposed to be added to category B. Next chart, adjustments to be added to category C. Again, legislation enacted last year, providing that for something called ABLE, a tax deduction, income tax deduction for qualified ABLE savings account. I've forgotten what ABLE is an acronym for, but the accounts are accounts that are like college savings accounts where money can be put into a fund, in this case, to provide money to be available to disabled people in meeting their needs. So it works in the same way as college savings accounts. The contributions can be made to the accounts on behalf of a disabled person. The disabled person, or they can set one up themselves, I guess, can withdraw the money from the fund. The advantage comes is that when the money is withdrawn from the fund, it's not taxable. The other really major advantage is that money in the fund is not counted against them as resources for purposes of being eligible for main care. So they can accumulate money. It can be used only for their basic living needs. Anyway, I'm not sure why this is being added to category C. It's probably based upon the estimated cost, which would not be great in the initial years. The question that comes at the end of this is that all of these adjustments that are being identified by OPEGA are given to the taxation committee for the taxation committee to comment on them if you want to. Your comment can consist of sending them a memo saying looks good to us, go ahead, or you can send a memo saying we have questions, we'd like to talk to you, or we have some concerns, we don't think you should do item X. That comes at the end. So that may be something you may want to ask about.
Hey, Julie, can I interrupt for just a sec?
Yeah.
Did you say that this list is on the government oversight webpage, like the list of what we're going to be seeing or what they're going to be seeing, I guess?
The list that I am showing you right now is on the taxation committee webpage.
Oh, it's on ours. Okay.
It's probably on the government oversight committee webpage as well, but I didn't.
Yeah, I'm on it right now, and
enough to be sure.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that they have the same stuff. Nate, maybe you can answer that if they have the. Do you have
if you go to the GOC section of OPEGA's website under meeting materials or documents, it would be there, and they're posted by date. So around March 12th is when you find it.
Thank you very much. So it's on OPEGA's page.
Yes.
Got it.
Thank you, Senator Libby. Everybody probably knows, but in case anybody doesn't, he is the Senate Chair of the Government Oversight Committee. So he is a very good connection between the two committees. Okay. Other items enacted recently to go on to the C list as a has to do the FAME loan guarantee program. I'm not sure whether this is, I don't remember the taxation committee being involved in this, but it's, okay. The loan guarantee program includes a subsection which makes deferred or canceled interest exempt from all state taxes. Okay, that's where the tax expenditure comes. The income tax exemption for interest on deferred or canceled amounts resulting from the FAME loan guarantee program, which I guess I'm going to have to learn more about. The next one on the list is a income tax credit for production of biofuels that have been certified. I'm not sure who certifies them. It has an estimated impact of less than $50,000, which would put it into the category C category. The next item is an income tax credit for taxpayers engaged in the production of renewable chemicals. This is also proposed to be added to category C. The amount is estimated to be more than $50,000 in the second year, but that's where OPEGA is recommended, or Government Oversight Committee, not OPEGA, is recommended putting them. The next one, the final one, is a sales tax exemption for incorporated nonprofit organizations organized for the purposes of providing food or other supplies intended for pets at no charge. So pet shelters and other organizations which provide free pet food for low-income people. Okay. The next, are you seeing the next chart now? It says 2, category B, expedited review by taxation committee.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. This is showing you under category B in the middle column after the dates, the tax policies which have been established for expedited review. In the item at the top of the list there that says cycle 1 means the ones that OPEGA is working on right now. They're putting the information together to send to you next fall. With regard to the categories of conformity with the Internal Revenue Code and exemptions for inputs to tangible properties. If you look sort of down at the bottom there, you'll see that that's coming up again in cycle 2, which means the second round. That will be the second year that gets evaluated. So it's this an awkward way of describing this. The cycle 1 is the first year that these have been subject to review. Cycle 2 means that we've gone through the first cycle, and the next cycle, we're back to, again, the beginning of the cycle. Necessity of life exemptions was the first one that was done 6 years ago now. It will come up again in 2022 because we will have finished all of the 6 policy areas. So those are the policy areas: necessity of life exemptions, tax fairness exemptions. Aren't they all? Specific policy goal mandate exemptions, charitable exemptions, first half, charitable exemptions, second half, interstate and foreign commerce exemptions, which was what the committee looked at last year. Well, actually, it's what the committee halfway looked at last year, but did not issue in a report. So it's still something you might be looking at. It's the expedited one that you received in the mail in your packet a month or so ago. And then back down to the bottom again. So the cycle 2 shows you the time frame that has currently existed for those review, except that the last one on the list is just now being reviewed. We're in the 6th year of the first cycle right now. Okay, more complicated. Category A, full review by OPEGA. This is a list of all of the items that are on that full review list. The first ones at the top here that say in progress are the 3 that I mentioned, which are in progress now. You'll notice that 2 of those are of some interest to you, because, especially soon, because you have bills this session relating to the seed capital tax credit and the research expense tax credit. I won't go into detail on this. You'll hear more about it when we talk about those credits, because we do have Lucia Nixon agree to come and talk to you about OPEGA's status. I'll simply say very briefly, these full reviews generally take at least 2 years from start to end, and they are just starting these reviews. They are at the point of OPEGA having proposed to the Oversight Committee the parameters for seed capital and research expense credit. They have not reached that point yet on the rehabilitation of historic properties credit. The full evaluation reviews, when they were first established back in 2015, were also intended to be on a 6-year rotating cycle. Fairly quickly, everyone in the process realized that a 6-year schedule was not going to work for all of the full reviews. It took too long. There was too much information that needed to be obtained, and just the process of getting it done was not going to be able to, the staff available to do it was not going to mean that, for instance, OPEGA could do more than 2 or 3 of these at some level in a year. Be working on them in a year, not to mention complete them in a year. And I'll show you why. As I scroll down, we get to future evaluations. This is the first page. There are 4 more listing full evaluation expenditures. These are in the order that they would come up for review. So right now what happens is, as soon as OPEGA finishes one, they will start work on another one, and the tax expenditures will begin the process of working them way through the evaluation and review and reporting. So next one's up are shipbuilding facility credit, read Bath Iron Works, but of course we have no idea who pays those taxes. Well, actually you do with regard to Bath Iron Works, because they're required to provide that information to us. Bath Iron Works is actually. Tax benefits for media production companies, food processing manufacturing facilities, deduction for contributions to capital construction fund for maintenance and replacement of fishing vessels, a sort of wide variety. Oh, okay, I skipped a step. These are organized by the policy group. The ones just mentioned are in the business incentive targeted industry group. The next group is non-business incentives, educational opportunity credit, employer credit for family medical leave, deduction for interest and dividends on main securities on the income tax, earned income tax credit, additional new policy tax relief for individuals, standard deduction for the blind and elderly, additional standard deduction for the blind and elderly, income tax credit for child independent care expense, deduction of pension income and IRAs, deduction of Social Security benefits tax at the federal level, property tax fairness credit, sales tax fairness credit, tax relief targeted industry, railroad track materials, supplies for windjammers, telecommunications. I'm sorry I'm going fast, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how many things are on this list. Tax policy, specific policy goal mandate, credit for affordable housing, the new one that they're adding, partial cigarette tax stamp exemption for licensed distributors, air and water pollution control facilities, sales tax exemption, and the special treatment of sales through coin-operated vending machines, bottom of list. As you can see, at the rate of 2 or 3 a year, it's going to take a few years before you get to the vending machines. One of the things that has become apparent this year, and one of the issues that's being discussed, and there's a lot of discussions that are starting to pop up this year with regard to this process, is whether this should be looked at and whether something different needs to be considered. Completed reviews is the end. This is the end. We're almost there. Well, we are there. This is the end. identifies the reviews that have been completed. Starting in 2017, new markets, capital investment credit, Pine Tree zones, major business headquarters expansion, ETIF in 2017, reimbursement for Better and Betty, main capital investment, Pine Tree zones. You're going to say, didn't we just do that? Yes, but Pine Tree zone, but the one that's was finished in 2020 was a limited scope review, which was done by OPEGA at the request of the legislature as a result of legislation enacted resulting from the first report in 2017. I'll also just mention at this point, I think I have before, but may not be the same people around. May not be very many people at all around anymore. I'm not sure. I can't see the full screen either. Pine Tree Zone development bills, including the original one establishing them, have never come to the Taxation Committee. They have always gone to the IDEA Committee or its predecessor, whether it was LCRED or BRED. It's had various incarnations over the years. Those have always gone to that committee rather than the Taxation Committee. The reports, on the other hand, are directed to come to the Taxation Committee. OPEGA also, or Government Oversight Committee, also obviously provides them to the IDEA Committee, knowing that connection. But the optional, the limited scope was requested as a result of legislation which originated in the IDEA Committee, not in the Taxation Committee. I'm done.
So,
Great, thank you.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you, Julie, for that. Is there any committee discussion on Julie's presentation or questions?
I wonder if we could just hear from Nate as the chair of government oversight. If you can kind of give us a quickie on what this whole process means to you and your committee at government oversight. I think there's I think we could have like a multi-day conference on all of this stuff for sure. But Nate, if you could walk us through what your thoughts are on this, that would be awesome.
Sure. So just a brief couple of points for background, especially for newer members of the legislature. The GOC, the Government Oversight Committee, is fairly unique in that we are a committee made up of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans from each chamber. So it is an even split. And our role is primarily to oversee the operations of the OPEGA staff. And they are the nonpartisan auditors and investigators that work for the legislature that look into a variety of issues, whether it's state contracts and ensuring money is spent well, evaluating problematic programs of the state, and there's been major complaints or alleged fraud and that sort of thing. And then, of course, over the last 5 years is this new large piece of work around tax expenditure evaluation. Our role at GOC is to evaluate the parameters that the staff present to us for evaluating a tax credit. We approve those parameters. We approve the schedule in which they will conduct those reviews. The staff go away and conduct their analysis completely insulated from any political pressure. They come back to us, they present their findings, and the GOC takes a vote to endorse a report. And endorsing a report is not saying this policy is good and we like it, or this policy is bad and we don't. Endorsement of the report is our committee has evaluated the work. We feel it's credible, fair, based in fact, and without influence from outside forces. So that's what an endorsement vote means. So that's a little bit of background. And I think when it comes to taking action on these reports and making changes to tax policy, we might try to highlight some of the findings in the OPEGA analysis, transmit that in a letter to the Taxation Committee, and we really look to the Taxation Committee to consider those changes in policy. Changing tax policy is not necessarily the purview of GOC. So it's really a process oversight function that we serve. A couple of observations that some of us have had are, number one, we would like to see full evaluations returned on a time frame that allows the legislature to act more quickly. I know that we've discussed the main historic preservation tax credit, which fortunately should be a fairly quick analysis because the affected parties have been very generous in handing over data collected directly to OPEGA. That really helps the process go more quickly. But with the seed capital tax credit, where we're talking about private investors and confidential tax returns, you know, that one might take longer for the OPEGA staff to gather that data. But I think most legislators who are watching this process would agree. We would like to see these evaluations done on a time frame that's much more quick, much quicker than 2 years. Because at the pace we're going, we're not going to be able to meet the goal of doing full evaluations every 6 or 7 years. So I guess I would pause there, and I would like to hear from members of this committee, you know, especially those who've been around for a while. You know, are you satisfied with its turnaround time that it takes? Do you want to see something? Do you want to see things done more quickly? And my final note on this is just an observation. When we're deciding on scope parameters for how deep to dig into some of these issues, I think as legislators, no matter our party, we're curious beings, and we've never come upon a public policy question that we don't want to investigate and answer. But each time we say yes to investigating this question or going down into that rabbit hole, we're adding time to the evaluation process, and we're adding work to the staff. So I think it's more an editorial comment. We've got to figure out a way to exercise a little bit more discipline when deciding on scope of a review, because if we do want things to be done more quickly, we're going to have to sort of narrow the scope and narrow the number of asks that we're making of these analysts and auditors to go investigate.
Well, Senator Libby, I would just say I do appreciate the reports and would like to see them done quicker if we can. And I understand your point about having to prioritize what we ask for information about. But I would say that another way to look at that might be that we consider adding more staff to OPEGA so that we can get reports done quicker and get reports on additional things if we want those. I think we owe it to our constituents to dig into some of these things, and so rather than limit that, I'd rather, you know, allocate the resources we need to be able to do the work better if that's what we want to do.
But if I might add, if we are going to do that, I think that we would need to not just expand OPEGA's workforce, but also that of MRS and honestly the other the companies that of which we're collecting data from as well. I think that the quickness is definitely important, especially when the legislature turns over every 2 years and a report comes out every 6 years. We find that we are, I guess, changing statutes before the opportunity arises for a report to even start. So I think that I agree with you, your ask, Senator Libby, that we work on narrowing what we really want to get out of these reports, and making sure that that what we want to get out of it, we're being asked to put into it before the credit is even extended to, a business or people. That we make sure that those questions can get answered before the credit goes even out. That way it's, the data is collected, from the get-go. So all OPEGA will have to do at the end of the day is just gather the data that we've been asking these companies to provide us. So we appreciate all of the work that you guys do, and I feel bad that we haven't been able to respond as quickly as maybe we should. So I think we can all probably work together for our response time and for going forward when we do create legislation, especially ones that will require a review, that we make sure that the data is there to begin with, so it's an easier process as we get down the road to make sure that these credits are worthy of all of the work that we do put into them. I'm interested to hear if any new members have any questions on this, because this can, for me anyway, when I was a new member, this was completely foreign to me, and it took a little while to really understand what the whole process was and why we do what we do. So I'm interested to hear from new members of this committee if there's any questions that they have, or if they're feeling as overwhelmed as I did in the beginning.
I was expecting your hand to go up, Representative Sachs. Excellent. Go for it.
Why, the data analyst? Why? Why would that be a surprise? No, of course, being a data analyst, love all of the data. And it's helpful that we saw this, at least for me as a new member, in the beginning of our work. Julie did an overview, and then seeing it again at this point actually is really, really helpful. And Senator Libby was kind enough to share with me the OPEGA schedule as well. The timeliness, of course, is something that I would encourage, because we've just, I don't know if this is normal for the tax committee, but we've just had 2 instances where, particularly I'm thinking of the seed tax credit, where there were just tweaks made last year that they're in the review. We're being asked to tweak it again, and having this report about actual data would be really, really helpful. So I'm appreciating it and just absorbing it as quickly as I can.
Any additional committee comments, or go ahead, Representative Carmichael.
Well, since you asked the new members to comment, I don't really feel qualified to comment. I'm still at the absorbing state, so I'll be studying it a while before I do a lot of commenting. I think it's very interesting, though.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and you know, I highly recommend, you know, picking Julie's brain, of course, because Julie has the best brain in this room for sure. Senator Libby and myself and Senator Chipman for sure. You know, any questions about this stuff, we're totally willing to have a conversation, either online or off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Senator Libby.
So just one follow up. I was hoping to get some guidance from this committee on, you know, turnaround time for reports and what expectations might be and how they line up with reality. But, you know, it takes almost 2 years to do a single report based on our track record. And, you know, when I started working on this in 2014, 2015, I was thinking, you know, we could get reports turned around in 90 days or 120 days. And obviously my hope is quite a ways off of what the actual result has been. So, I mean, I guess I'm asking a question that may not be able to be answered, but if folks could wave a magic wand, what time frame would you expect these reports to be turned around from time of execution to completion?
Go ahead, Representative Krajicek.
Yes, Senator Libby, I guess to follow up on what was just talked about, we had 2 bills that had some changes in the 129th, and they've been tabled because we're supposedly waiting for the OPEGA report that comes out next March. We just got the red book a couple of weeks ago. If we need information, is OPEGA available? I mean, are they able to, if we just have one issue, are they able to give us a report within 90 days?
I think if a request is made by the legislature to do a expedited review is the wrong term, because that's the term used for the one pager, but a quicker review. We actually need to make a statute change, in my opinion, to maybe describe these reviews differently, because expedited review to me means legislature wants something done quickly, and 90 or 120 days is a reasonable turnaround time. But to answer your question, Representative Krajicek, if the legislature said we want this review done on this issue, the OPEGA staff will execute on that and deliver. The last time we did it was with the Pine Tree tax credit program, where I think it was an act of the legislature directing OPEGA to do a timeline on a shorter, to do a review on a shorter timeline. I'm asking more as a general matter, what's the expectation on the tax committee? Is 2 years adequate? Are you satisfied with that? Or do we need to signal to the OPEGA office that there needs to be some adjustments made?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Representative Sachs.
Honestly, Senator Libby, I think it's going to depend on the program that you're looking at. Trend data might be important for some. So a year's out, some studies just aren't going to be for 90 to 120 days. If the program is long-standing, you might have some usable data, I would think, within that time frame. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure, depending on the issue, that 90 to 120 days would be feasible given what you're looking for. I just don't know whether it's utilization or trend or impact, return on investment, whatever it happens to be. Not knowing the parameters, just as normal sort of data analysis.
So maybe something we can all kind of consider, you know, when we're doing our work. You know, what we're going to be speaking with Lucia, I think on the 20th, right, Julie? In a couple of weeks. So
Yes.
maybe like in between now and then, we can all sort of like take a deep dive in our own heads as to what we're looking for, you know, for these reviews. And, you know, when we speak to her, come prepared with some questions as to, you know, what reality is versus what our expectation is, and then, you know, kind of work from there to make a nice a time compromise.
Right. Yeah, she'll be with us on Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock on the 20th.
Yeah.
So you're saying that's like Christmas for me. Thank you. Can I ask one more question? So one thing that I did find helpful in Julie's chart, and I'm going to go back and look, is what is the purpose of the legislation? Is it to incentivize? Is it to bolster in some way? Is it to relieve burden? Whatever it is. And so my question for Alicia will be, as part of that OPEGA analysis, and maybe to your point, Senator Libby, is can those timeframes be shortened based on what the focus is? Right? So if you're looking, how long do you need to know if something actually incentivizes behavior? How long do you need to know if this is, it may be quite small in terms of utilization, and how long do you need to know that to know if it's actually helping to relieve the burden? Is the administrative cost of the program, as we had just voted one down, is the administrative cost of the program more than the benefit realized by X? So those are my questions around timeframes, and one that Lucia, I would hope, can answer for us. I'm seeing nods, so that makes sense to everybody. Good. Again, I'm new, so
I think that in of itself would speed up the process, just knowing what the purpose of the question for the review is. So yeah. Julie, did you want to say something? You're on.
Yep. I was trying to lower my hand. No, trying to take notes on 3 different things at once here. Yes, and one thing I wanted to mention too, and maybe this is a good time to mention it, the seed capital credit that you tabled, I was thinking that it might be useful to schedule that for public hearing on the same day, on the 20th, as the research and development. So you'll have Ms. Nixon here on both bills on the same day, and they're related issues, related questions that you want to ask her with regard to those two. So I'm sure that, although if you just restricted it to research credit, the questions would come up about seed as well in that context.
Okay. We'll
Yep. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I forgot to do this, that in the history of the tax expenditure review process, back at one point in the 1990s, the legislature enacted something called the Economic Development Incentive Commission. This was actually as a result of legislation and was ultimately chaired by then State Senator Shelley Pingree, interestingly. But that legislation required this commission, which consisted of legislators, representatives of the public. There were some municipal officials, some business officials, a variety that the statute provided. And it was meant to be an ongoing commission, not just a study commission, to review tax expenditures. This was the original process that, as you'll see, didn't work. What what that group decided after a year or two of operations was that it really didn't have the information about purposes and goals or the ability to evaluate anyone. And they recommended that they be repealed. It's the first time I've ever seen a group recommending that they be repealed, but they did, and they were. And that's was sort of the then beginning of looking for a new process, which ended up in the one we have now. However, part of that was to require reports. I think there were like 5 different tax incentives, which were requiring report from the businesses to either usually DECD or Maine Revenue Services, but the agency that they had contact with anyway, with data to try to provide some sort of evaluation. Yeah, partly as a result of that work as well, DECD and the IDEA Elkred bread community went off in a different direction as well with regard to evaluation of economic development incentives. There is currently a provision in Title V under the DECD law with regard to economic development, which requires DECD at its current iteration, which has changed a lot over the last 10 years, but in its current iteration, it requires every 4 years for DECD to provide an evaluation, and I think they're required to contract with an independent contractor, economic analysis contractor, to provide an evaluation of economic development incentives. Economic development incentives is defined from a term which was enacted way back in the days of the Economic Development Incentive Commission. And the definition includes tax expenditures. Obviously, a lot of the tax expenditures are related to, especially the full value ones, are related to economic development. That report in its current iteration is due February 1st, 2021, which is a couple of months ago. I sent an email, I just discovered this or remembered this last night, and I sent an email to DECD asking for the status of that report. I have not heard back from them yet, but I will also check with the staff of the IDEA committee who will know what that is. But there is also that process. Maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, the process, the requirement of DECD was different, but it was also a contracting obligation they had. They hired a company, I think was headquartered in Denmark or something, but they also had offices in Boston, to do a review, which most recipients, most of the people who have actually looked at that report of that organization were quite unhappy with the results in terms of the report having incomplete sentences, not providing sources for where it got some of the information in their tablets. I have a copy in my office if anyone's interested in looking at it. I know the former director of OPEGA at that point, Beth Ashcroft, was also not very happy with it. And that resulted in some changes, but I don't know what process it is now. It's a report from DECD to the IDEA committee about economic development incentives, which include tax expenditures. I know in the last one, they looked at Better and Betty and a couple of other credits as well. So I don't know where that stands, but that's more action, more activity in this area that's bubbling around out there.
That sounds like it would make OPEGA's jobs a lot easier if they identified where there were better or worse, not better, BDR programs. So I would love to, I don't necessarily need to see the report with missed sentences, but if you could follow up with us on on where we are with that, that would be great. That would be awesome.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Great, thanks, Julie.
Well, that was a really quick review, huh? Sorry, thank you for all of that time, Julie. Really, that was very helpful.
Any additional committee?
You're welcome. In my own mind, I sort of trying to figure out, I mean, you're aware of it, I probably sort of alluded to it earlier, that part of this issue is the time of the taxation committee as well. It's time of the Government Oversight Committee, it's the time of OPEGA, it's the time of Maine Revenue Services, it's the time of DECD and other agencies or beneficiaries of the incentives or tax expenditures to make this process work or to figure out how it can work. And part of that is looking at your schedule coming up in the next few weeks in terms of public hearings and work sessions, and when any of us are going to have time to even think about this. But at least on the 20th, there'll be an opportunity to fit it in, and you'll find other ways as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, sounds great, Julie. Excellent. Well, thanks for everything. Any additional committee discussion? Seeing none, I guess.
No, I always appreciate hearing about the review of these programs. It was back in the day, because I went to the Muskie School a long time ago, and and OPEGA even before, doing the government oversight was the pie in the sky. It was the organization that people who went through the Muskie School aspired to. So to see the results of their work is amazing.
All right.
Excellent. Well, seeing no more committee discussion, we'll wrap up our meeting for today. See everybody on Tuesday morning for public hearings at 9 o'clock, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Have a good weekend.